Hello all, welcome to Bare Metal Distro Review. This is the series where I review Linux distros by actually putting them on real hardware and then using them. Kind of a radical concept. Today, for your viewing delight, what we have is Garuda Linux Cinnamon Edition. I will tell you, so far I really quite like this distro. So, I'm going to start off as usual by getting a little bit into the history of the distro, although there isn't really a whole lot to get in here. Garuda Linux is a pretty new distro. It's one of the recent crop of Arch-based distros, and it's new enough that most of the original developers are still involved in it because, it's only about 5-6 years old. Now, if you haven't seen this series before, I'm going to rate this distro out of 5, and I rated it on 4 key points: aesthetics, ease of use, stability, and how well does it achieve its stated goals. Without further ado, let's just get into it. You can see here I have HTOP up on the screen right now, and while I wouldn't call this distro lightweight, I would say that it is actually pretty efficient in terms of its resource use. But wait till I minimize it and you get to see the real treat. This is the real aesthetics of Garuda Linux right here. It is very ostentatious. That's the word I would use for it. But while I didn't really like it at first, I have to admit that it's really starting to grow on me. And the reason that it's starting to grow on me is because it's very out there, it's very in your face, and it's very much an act of artistic rebellion against the kind of black minimalist schemes that you see everywhere these days. I get kind of a synthwave vibe from it, and that kind of makes me like it because it kind of makes me think of like Tom Cruise and a Tomcat and Top Gun. Somebody needs to really make that background, a Top Gun themed background for this distro would be absolutely mint. So for aesthetics, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It's pretty ostentatious, but I'm kind of starting to like it. Now, for ease of use, if you saw my other video on Garuda Linux, the KDE Dragonized edition, which I'm going to link down below for your viewing interest, you'll know that with that particular version of it, the aesthetics kind of got in the way of the usability of the distro, and it kind of made things very frustrating with the way they implemented the themes and stuff. But with the Cinnamon edition, that's not the case. Yes, it's very ostentatious, but if I go to the menu right here, you can see that besides the very strong theming, it's pretty much just your standard Cinnamon implementation, which Cinnamon in a standard implementation is really quite easy to use and quite user-friendly. So, in terms of ease of use, I'm going to go with a 4 out of 5 because, yeah, it's a little ostentatious and the icons take a little bit of getting used to, but other than that, it's pretty much just a basic Cinnamon implementation, and that's always pretty easy to use, even though it might not have the kind of theming and customization options that other desktops have. I still like it. Now on to the next category, which is stability. For stability, I'm going to give Garuda Linux actually a 4.9 out of 5. The only reason I knocked that little bit off of the 5 is because it's a rolling release distro. And like I've said with other rolling release distros, you never know when a bowling ball is going to come down the alley and kind of take everything out. Although with mature software projects, that doesn't tend to be as bad. It can still happen. But the reason that I rate it so strongly is because, first of all, I've had no issues with it so far. And second of all, Garuda actually comes with really great NVIDIA integration. So this distro tends to be much more stable on NVIDIA cards than some of the other distros that I've tried recently. And that is just such a huge help because so many times when you're trying to install a Linux on a computer with a NVIDIA card, there's not a whole lot of support and it's just a pain in the butt. So it's really nice that you actually have very good NVIDIA support out of the box, which I'll show you a little bit more about that in a minute. Now, how well does Garuda Linux attain its stated goal. Well, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 on this one because it really hits it out of the park. See, what Garuda is intended to be is a easy-to-use Arch-based distro for gamers. You know, and that's kind of where I think the theming inspiration comes from and stuff like that. And I have to admit that when it comes to that goal, Garuda Linux absolutely just nails it. And the reason for that is because this is one of the easiest to set up and get up and running distros I have ever used. And I'm going to show you what makes it super easy. So you have what you call Garuda Welcome. Okay? And the first time you install the distro, this comes up. And this right here is a really nice welcome screen, in the vein of some of the really nice welcome screens that we've been seeing in different Linux distros lately. And this comes with all sorts of tools that make Garuda Linux so much easier to use than it might be otherwise, than like, say, like an Arch install, for example. So here, okay, you can add repositories, you can use Reflector, you can clear the cache, you can do a whole system update just by using Garuda Assistant. And there's all sorts of other things in here too, where it'll tell you like system specs. Got some other diagnostics here where you can see like journal errors and stuff like that, and some general maintenance stuff that makes it actually that quite easy. You might be saying, okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. Then we've got Garuda Gamer. This is pretty cool. This is a screen that allows you to install Steam and a whole ton of emulators and a whole ton of games too, actually. And some other tools like core control, which is actually quite nice. Mumble. All sorts of utilities where all you got to do is go through, tick the boxes and the ones you want, hit apply, and boom, they install for you. Like, I've gone through some of the games here. The games here, by the way, they're all open source, so make of that what you will. I have been I did try out a little bit of Linux City NG. It wasn't too bad. I didn't get too into it. One of these days I'm going to do a stream of Super Tux Kart because that game just looks super fun, you know, if you ever got into like Mario Kart racing and stuff like that, which I used to play a lot of back in the day. And again, it's the same thing. You tick any one of these ones you want, you hit apply, and boom, you're good to go. Now this one here, okay, this one here, the one that I hit to get in here is the Garuda Settings Manager. This here is actually quite important because this gives you some great options for configuring your hardware. And this screen here will allow you to just automatically install whatever proprietary or open source drivers you want for anything that's on your system. Super handy, frankly. And we have another option with the kernels, where you can actually remove kernels from the welcome screen, which again is pretty handy, especially if you want to see what kernels you have and you don't want to have to reboot. Before I get into the really cool setup assistant, I do want to talk about some of the very interesting choices I find that Garuda makes in terms of software and just general system configuration out of the box. So Garuda is one of the few Linux distros that uses Btrfs as its file system, and on top of that, it comes out of the box with the Zen kernel. That's 2. 3 is that it uses the fish shell as its default shell, which is really cool. So here, I'm going to show you something right here. So if I bring up a terminal, you can see that it automatically runs basically neofetch whenever I open a terminal. And if I go to run in a command, like say uname -r, you can see it's the fish shell. It has that nice, wonderful text highlighting thing I really like. And if I run uname -r, there it is. I'm running the Zen kernel, which it comes supported out of the box, which is some actually really cool choices. I kind of like it, the fact that they're making these kinds of bold choices, because I really like it when people actually try to genuinely push forward proper technological advancements, stuff like Btrfs and stuff like that. Even though, frankly, in a lot of ways, I'm still an old stick in the mud and would probably never actually use something like ButterFS if it wasn't with Garuda Linux out of the box. Most of the time, if I have the choice, I still stick to ext4. But again, I actually have a real respect for the bold choices. So now I'm going to show you guys the setup assist. This is actually something I really liked. So if you click Setup Assistant, okay, which it'll take you through this the first time you install it, you hit OK. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to prompt you with a terminal where it wants you to put in your password so it can run the updates. So I'm going to do that right now. There, and it's running the updates and it's running Reflector. And what this will do is the first time you install your system, you run this and it'll get all the updates for you, which is very important on rolling releases. Rolling releases, sometimes you can collect a lot of updates depending on how old the ISO you're using. And there we are. It's running the updates now. Now, Garuda Linux does use its own updates script, typically instead of the typical Pacman SYU, but you can still use the Pacman SYU if you want to. So we're going to hit enter. And you see right there, it said checking for the NVIDIA drivers. Now, since I already have installed it's obviously not going to come up with anything because, you know, the NVIDIA drivers are already there. Then we get into this screen in the Garuda Setup Assistant where it just makes getting things up and running very fast and very easy. So I got a bunch of OS preferences down here. I can pick any one of these I want. And all of this is different categories of software I can pick from. So like I can pick from a bunch of different software centers. Frankly, more software centers than I would ever think to include. You can pick multiple kernels. You can pick office software, audio, video software, graphic software. And for all of this, all you got to do is tick the boxes here. You hit OK, and it'll automatically install and all of this for you. So that makes it super easy getting up and running after you've reinstalled your system. Let's take something I don't have already installed. Let's go with, say, Evolution. Okay, I don't have Evolution installed, so I'm going to tick this box. I'm going to hit OK. It's going to prompt me for my password again, and voila, it's installing Evolution for me. So like I said, super easy. You don't have to go hunting down software when you're trying to like just get your system up and running again. This is, and I know they had like this in mind too when they were developing it, because if you're a gamer, right, there's certain things you're going to want to get up and running first so you can get other things up and running. Like for example, you might want to install, when you're first installing your system fresh, you probably want to install Steam right away, so that way you can get your games going, because sometimes those can take quite a long time. And again, see, now that's done, and we have Evolution Mail Client. Not that I'm going to use Evolution, but yeah, see, you can see it right there. I think it might have put it in kind of a weird spot, but there we go. So, on the whole, I'm going to give this distro a 4.5 out of 5, and I'm probably going to be using this for the foreseeable future. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and pray every day.